Hi, this is Renee Miller, and we are with our predictions series number 11 today, and we are going to be talking about the prediction for
DNA, the changes to come.
And so we're going to continue with our PowerPoint, and these predictions are given in its original language. We are going to present our interpretation of it where applicable, but you can interpret for yourself. And that we'll give any other suggestions that are necessary as far as or things that you can do to plan for it. So
with this, we'll start out with genetic change to come. God, the Creator, decides the pattern, formulation, and what level of reciprocal needs are to be required for this change. So many levels over periods can be accomplished.
So what does the reciprocal needs?
Explain what the reciprocal needs are. Mankind has got to change. They will not survive. And with these changes come interesting events which man will have to face if they're going to be involved in this change.
So to me, the reciprocal change would be humanity is at this level of genetic expression
right now.
And we need humanity to get up to this level of genetic expression.
So they're going to have to go through many changes.
And so there's many changes that are required to flip us up in our level of genetic expression. So we're going to talk about some of those changes that we've been told about today. So many levels over periods can be accomplished. This is not something that's going to happen overnight.
No, it's not. It's going to happen over a period of years.
And in many different aspects are going to cause these genetic changes, right?
And many things that man is not going to like based on their now perception.
So the change in genetics will be a resistance to the pollution or the problems that man has created. And the genetic change will be a tolerance to a warmer planet.
Now they're talking about going back into an ice age. But eventually, when all this is complete, the planet will become a warmer planet.
At least for a period of time. They have predicted that we're going to have a mini ice age in about, 50 years or something like that.
Less than that.
So we've been told over and over again to expect a warmer planet. That is in the plan. And so
that is far in advance with all the cleansing that has happened. The earth will cleanse itself of all things. The earth can do this. Men cannot stop it. That has been done so far. Everything that man has done to the earth, it will undo and clean itself.
And it's called the purification.
Yeah.
So, and the Native Americans talk about a purification.
That's right. So after that, the earth will warm.
So we can expect a change in our genetics that will help us resist the pollution that we have created ourselves and the other problems. So our guides have not really been concerned about the carbon. In fact, they have told us that carbon is needed. We need some carbon. And that the volcanic activity is causing a much higher degree of carbon release into the atmosphere and higher into the atmosphere, having a much bigger impact. They are more concerned about our mining of uranium, which is a power base to the earth.
And iridium.
And iridium, which they tell us helps to stabilize our electromagnetic field. And so when we mine the uranium, we are
weakening the field.
We are weakening the Earth's power base. Yeah. And when we mine the iridium,
weakening the field.
We are weakening the electromagnetic field. These are things that mankind is ignorant to. So they're much more concerned about those because they have a much bigger impact on the Earth itself than the carbon. So they're telling us that these rain patterns will change. And when you have volcanic activity in the ocean, what happens to create the change in rain patterns?
Well, the ocean changes, the flow of the ocean begins to change. And that actually controls a lot of the weather. Now, man thinks that the human can control the weather to a very limited point.
And so when we have a heating up of the ocean, we see these El Nino, and it changes the jet stream. It changes, starts with the ocean flow stream, which changes the jet stream. And in the United States, it either will the jet stream will travel in a more northerly pattern where it dumps more water over the northern states, or it will travel in a more southerly pattern. And that's what gives you the El Nino and La Nina.
Anyway, the DNA reacts to vibrational truths of each pattern, given the variances that many are available. There's various variances that are available to the pattern, not just one pattern. So a tuning fork in its application.
And so what they're saying here is that the DNA responds to the vibration of the weather patterns. And so our DNA is dialed into the Earth specifically, but it's also dialed into our atmosphere. And it allows us to change and evolve based on our atmosphere. And so and that has to do with the vibration of the atmosphere, including the rain patterns. Now, they're saying being of various atmospheric conditions, each has its own vibration. So all the atmospheric conditions have their own vibration, and our DNA is acting like a tuning fork that can be achieved through the use of a ring vibration, and that influences the DNA that attunes to that ring vibration.
Right.
So what is a ring vibration? Is that
it's not a true ring vibration. Everything runs counterclockwise in energies as far as the north is concerned. So with that, the DNA strand attuning to that counterclockwise vibration is attuned to those that can be attuned.
So they're telling us that DNA redialing is going to occur, and some of the other influences will occur within the parent that will be passed on to the children.
Outside source.
And so significant contributions will be made by outside sources to ensure a significant step forward in the development of the human species.
So significance, how is the significance of the word? It's going to work in an intellectual capacity and understanding the universal phenomena that's going around right now that they're newly discovering.
So this universal phenomenon, anything going on in the universe, and where we have the intellectual capacity to understand what is happening scientifically, but also how that influences us spiritually.
So how's the behavior patterns going to be brought forth
to the true identity? Well, man was underdeveloped as a cause in our distant past. And so we were genetically engineered but at a lower genetic expression.
Mm-hmm.
And that had to do with, if you have ever read Sitchin's work, Zechariah Sitchin, The 12th Planet, our spiritual guides say that that book is about 98% correct, that there will be more deciphering of clay tablets to come, and that will provide us with more information. But in that book is a historical documentation of our ancestors and what they witnessed going on the earth thousands of years ago. And that had to do with other beings that were here from outside the earth who developed the human genome in part as a workforce.
Much like we're doing right now.
Yeah, but it was that human race was developed as a proletarian race, which is a workforce, and as part of an experiment.
Yeah, and we're experimenting with the human genome right now to the lower level, but we are experimenting with it.
So the true expression should be, and when they're talking about the true identity of humanity, it needs to be brought forth to a higher genetic expression, because we don't realize the dangers of some of the decisions that we're making, the pollutants to the environment, some of the technology that we are engaging in.
So you're talking about the biochemical changes?
There will be a biochemical change within the human genome. And so what does that mean? It starts with a genetic change. And that genetic change results in physical changes and chemical changes within the body, how our neurological system works to an upgraded degree.
Now, will all of mankind be affected in this, or just a few?
No, it does not. Unfortunately, there's a part of the population that genetically is at a disadvantage, and it will not have an effect on those who are genetically at a disadvantage. But so they're telling us that about 22.5% of the population is able to reach that, and particularly reach the open level of understanding in order to survive this change. And so, unfortunately, it's not going to affect everyone.
Yeah, unfortunately, the changes that are coming, only 22.5% of the total world population will be able to reach the open level of understanding that could, I use the word could heavily here, survive the change.
And also, there is free will that plays into that. So even though you have a segment of the population that is able to move forward genetically and spiritually and be able to understand the lessons that are going to be presented in this next cycle, through free will, we may choose not to go through these very difficult changes that are lying directly ahead of us.
So it's going to be a dramatic effect on now the humankind as we know it. It's going to be a profound effect on the rising of an intellectual mankind, one that will be universally fit. In other words, mankind will raise to the level that the universe and the other entities within the universe will accept man, the new man, in the intellectual prowess that they possess.
What they're saying also here is that humanity will be at a genetic expression that will be closer to that of the rest of the universe and other beings who are operating on a much higher genetic expression than humanity is at this point. So that way we will be able to assimilate some of the new technology and the new levels of intellectual information and understanding that these beings can share with us in the future as they begin to teach humanity once again. Getting back to Zecharia Sitchin's book, The 12th Planet, that was a big thing in our antiquitous past, is how these other beings came to Earth. They had certain mining operations going on the Earth, but also they were teaching humanity a number of things.
So this next sentence is a question that was asked to us by the ancients. And the question asked was, can you perceive the involvement of man with the limited knowledge that you have in medical terms, considering the exposure ratios of various toxicological substances?
And so basically what they're saying is we're living in a cesspool of toxic substances. And
which we've created ourselves.
We have created it ourselves, and a lot of it has to do with inorganic chemistry. And so we have all kinds of chemicals in every aspect of our lives. And, you know, it's not just the Roundup. I mean, take a look at a bottle of lotion and read the back ingredients. It is a number of chemicals that are in everything that we have. And when you apply that to the skin, you absorb it into your interior. So everything that we're doing, that from hair dyes, lotions, shampoos, conditioners, nail products,
to food.
Our food supply is depleted of nutrients, but it's also it's contaminated with a lot of chemicals. And we cannot evolve to higher levels of genetic expression under those circumstances of this chemical warfare on our bodies. And it's not just affecting us, it's affecting the rest of the living world.
Yeah. So evolvement is a must for the survival of any species. They say, but at a cost. And what do you think the cost mean?
So as they have mentioned previous, is that only 22.5% of the population is able to reach that level of understanding and could survive the change. And so there's a great cost of life there.
Great cost.
And so, but at the same time, they're telling us that this is necessary for humanity to survive in general, because if they don't make these genetic changes, one, we'll either destroy ourselves, or two, the impetus for the life expression peters out, because the whole premise of life in the universe is based on evolution. That is the way that God created it. So there is no difference between the creational story in a sense and evolution. It is one and the same. God creates life, but he creates life to evolve and to higher states of learning. So there really isn't a discrepancy in the whole issue as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, except where mankind came from, there's a discrepancy there. We know that.
Right. And
so with that,
we've actually, to answer that, you open that one.
No.
You open that box. Is that did humanity evolve from apes?
No. Humanity did not evolve from apes. If you're you are a student of history, then you know this fact because of the different Sumerian language and ancient languages that have been put out. The man did not evolve from apes, but
we actually asked this question.
Evolutionized with the help of those outside this planet to move forward.
So I at one point had asked if man had, or actually if primates had been genetically altered to form man, because we had already been told that man was a created race, that we're not an indigenous organic life form here, that we were created, and we were created out of the genetic material that was brought here from other races out in the universe. And the answer was no, they did not use primates, but instead primates were developed to mimic human behavior. There were many experiments going on, and that is why we had a lot of different genetic expressions of humanity existing in the same plane at the same time frame, and which science has discovered now. It wasn't one leading into the other.
That's why they call this Earth is the lab. It's an experimental planet. Okay, with that,
we kind of got off on
with that, we like to complete this particular.
Thank you for joining us. And for more lessons on our spiritual path, you can join us in our other series, The Augmentation of Man, A Study in Renaissance, and visit our website, verdience.com.
We have a book study on Monday nights.
Right. So if you wish to join in our book study, you can email us and we'll get you on the list and get you all set up. That's Monday nights, Central Time, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m.
Where we discuss a particular couple of pages in the book.
And we open up for questions and answers.
And have a short video.
And then we have a blog that goes into more detail on our website, verdience.com.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good week, and we will be back soon with a new lesson from The Augmentation of Man. And by the way, we have a new book coming out. And so this year, look forward to seeing that. It will be the next in the series of The Augmentation of Man, The Acquiescence of Humanity. And so that is how humanity is going to be absorbed into the universal neighborhood. So we're going to be in the new book talking a lot about outside cultures and where man is going as far as our path that will be incorporated into our universal neighborhood.
And it's an easier read than the first book.
I'm trying to make it easier, but we'll continue to help you in any way we can. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye now.